Yep,
That's going to be us then.
Woo.
We've popped over to the pro draft here that should be starting momentarily. But just before we get going, I wonder, Paul, you talked about how you think Vlad Banners only is going to take the series, but ultimately you give Lotus a game. What do you think that game sort of comes off of?
I think for Lotus, it has to be finding ways to play around or against the mid lane of that Asol and that Azir. Now, I think there's still as cool as it is, and as much as I love an Asol player and an Azir player, you're still gonna have flaws, especially in this elo of execution and difficulty that I think maybe they could take advantage of. I mean, Alistair's is the #1 damage ADC, and I believe overall damage player in the league. I think we both like Katsuki, and I really like JBL. So I think they have enough to win a game. I think they do a lot of things right still, and to kind of attest to that with Zephyr and Beatdown's breakdown of where their strengths lie. So I think they're still able to pull one off, but man, VBO is still really, really good though. It's gonna be hard to win that one, but I think they still can.
Yeah, and I like the Bard takeaway from VBO because one of the things that I was focusing on was their very large out macro style, and I like the Vlad ban from Vlad Banners only. As much as it is in the name, it's specifically effective against Lotus, who have a lot of games on Vladimir, and it's not a champion that you can let through against a team that wants to team fight late. You don't want to be dealing with something like that.
Right, exactly. And these bans are generally pretty strong here, right? You want to get rid of this Samir and Set because of some of the scaling, and Set, especially in that bot lane right now on the support's just really difficult to deal with. In the first pick, B1 really strong, taking the Caitlyn. I think that's super smart. Force your will early in the bot side of the map, and don't get too cheeky with B1. We've seen some questionable B1s this season, but that was just a smart and safe one.
Yeah, and this, moreover, is going to be playing to what I think is your win condition on Lotus, is towards that bot lane. Locking in the Braum as well is going to provide Alistair a lot of safety, and you'd mentioned it before, and we'll continue to bring it up throughout the series, is being able to solve the Alistair puzzle of how to unlock this completely is going to be what I think is one of the biggest challenges, but also biggest strengths of Lotus. Speaking of that, though, I feel like Vlad Banner's only right now still on the defensive. They've grabbed themselves the Ornn, effectively a 4th ban.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really strong. And I don't know, both comps now, I'm a little afraid for Lotus now going so much into the volley bear, because I've seen, I was looking through some of the stats from earlier, and you have to play so heavily early for the volley bear, and I think they might have been content to just farm up with the Caitlyn Braum bot side. I mean, I wonder, ultimately, I'm curious their next 2 picks and how that ultimately kind of joins itself together. But it should be interesting. I'm curious. Both comps have are flashing a lot of interesting things, but ultimately they might throw us some wrenches here on the back end.
Yeah, I think Caitlyn Braum, you can fight a little bit early, but was definitely expected to be more of a fighting top lane for Vlad Banners. Instead, like we said, locking themselves in the Ornn is a takeaway from Lotus, who are quite strong on it. And right now, nobody's gotten their power picks yet, and I feel like Vlad Banners only really have been responding relatively appropriately. The Jhin, a little bit questionable here for me, but it will be the lock-in, and I'm ready to be proven wrong.
Yeah, and it's questionable for me because the whole idea of a Jhin usually is you want something that synergizes with its double CC train really well, and Rakan really doesn't. He has to go all in, which is, I guess, fine depending on how you want to play it, but it's just not your traditional matchup in the same way a Jhin Morgana is, or, a Jhin Leona or something, right? And so I don't know how much I love it necessarily, but again, it's a lot of cool engage with the Ornn and with Zoe, so maybe it's just enough.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of the Zoe, the other thing Jhin can do relatively well is assist with that sort of wave clear and poke that Zoe also brings a little bit of. So with the 2 champions together, you're actually kind of getting a wave clear champion, and better off you're getting a siege, an ability to siege, and with Ornn Rakan also an ability to counter engage. So I really like the team fight that they've drafted themselves, but it's got to be around objectives right now. It's conditional team fight.
Right, and I'm going to highlight, I looked at Twitch chat quick, so shout out to whoever said it, but Jhin into Braum is just really tough. Your curtain call is you're just literally smashing a frost wall. So a little tough, and Braum, bless you. And Braum also blocks the Ornn horn. So really, the Braum pick's really, really smart in a couple ways, and sort of results in being smart. Now, VBO going to wrap up here with the Kindred, and we see Lotus ending with this Mal fight. And so now that we kind of have these two teams in totality to take a look at them, um, they're both really interesting, right? Because VBO now with the addition of this Kindred gives themselves a lot more sustainability to kind of fight up in close. And I think that's the thing that I wanted to see to kind of tie this all together. And so I think I like that Rakan combination now even more now that Kindred can keep them alive a bit longer.
It gives some sustain in those fights, and I like how Kindred goes here in terms of the composition and in terms of the fights, but in terms of the draft in the early sort of, let's call it 15 minutes, I don't think Kindred's a good pick here because you don't have a lot of pressure lanes. Ornn into Malphite is going to go relatively even. Eventually, Malphite will start doing very well and potentially even winning the matchup. Zoe into Orianna. Orianna is going to be able to clear and match her evenly, and Caitlyn Braum is going to be winning. You want to have lanes that have pressure as somebody like a Kindred, and Vlad banners only don't have those.
Right, yeah, that early part of the game especially is going to be really, really difficult, and I don't know how well she's going to deal with Never Marks. I think it's going to be maybe the biggest question mark on our end as we kind of wait to see how things are. Now, from Lotus's side, I think it's a really safe draft, and ultimately
A lot easier for Lotus to execute on some late game fights and be able to disengage if they're not working. It becomes so evident.
got a little too cheeky with their draft, or do you think this is still sort of all things looking up VBO?
I think right now Lotus actually have a handle on this game. I feel like Vlad banners only has drafted a little bit disrespectfully, especially with not securing any real lane priority for themselves. And I think that's going to bite them because Jimmy is basically the success story for Vlad banners. Or sorry, yeah, Jimmy is basically the success story for Vlad banners. Only had to check myself there. In terms of when the jungler is doing well, the team is doing well, and that extends more so for Jimmy than it does for almost anybody, any other jungler in the league. And like you can see it in terms of the direct correlation between his KDA and his ADC's gold, which is very strange. And right now, I think that they've sort of put themselves in a hole here, and if they were to win this game, I think my prediction might be wrong. You know, if Vlad banners only actually walk away with game one here, I think that they go 2-0 because right now they're not paying attention to what Lotus is doing, what Lotus wants to fight them on. And, you know, if you can not pay attention to your opponent and win, like, the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. And so with that, I believe we are winding down on spectate delay, so we will just get you ready for game number one. So starting tonight for Vlad banners only, we've got Stingus, Jimmy, Prophet, Gates, and Walnut. And starting for Lotus, we will have Crooked Serpent, Katsuki, JVL, Alistair, and Dunzi. And whoop, I actually messed up. I'm inting. Too many timers on the game. We still got a minute or two left here. So I just want to, I'll hype in with one other thing. We've got a whole lot of other games going on tonight as well as I pull up the schedule for the rest of the league myself. And one of the things already, so we're about the halfway point for the season here, Dia. And as we're, playoff implications are already going to be starting to come to the forefront. And I think we both think VBO can sort of make a run into playoffs. But ultimately, let's say they sweep tonight. Will that begin to change your mind and make you think maybe this is a team that could compete with CGC?
I think Vlad banners only is the team that I'm looking at to compete with CGC. Of the two teams tonight, whoever wins this matchup is sort of my dark horse going into the playoffs. because right now, like you say, we're getting relatively late in the season, and we're pretty sure that we're going to see at least one of these teams. But I think that's a good question that you bring up. Looking forward into the future, I think whoever walks away tonight is the one that I want to see succeed against CGC, and that I think can, because these are two of the stronger teams that nobody's heard of before.
And that's something to keep our eye on. The other games tonight, just as a reminder, we have Mizzou against Booyah Exiles. Anarchy is going to take on CGC tonight, so we'll see if CGC drops their first game of the season or if they continue their 2-0 rolling. Obviously, here we will have Lotus and Vlad banners only for you, and FGCU Thunderbirds will take on YO Boomers. But with that, we will actually be going to a break this time, a little delay and sync up, and then you will be on the Rift with Mr. Beatdown and Zephyr in just a few minutes, and we will see you after the game for post game. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, here to Game 1 of the XLNC Heavy League here in the Week 4. We've got Lotus versus Vlad banners only. We've been discussing, we've been hashing out. We gave you a D&D pre-show. We've got it all laid out here on the Hallows Eve that we're approaching here shortly. And now it's up to these two teams to decide how they're going to win this one out. I'm your play-by-play Zephyr, and I'm joined by the lovely Beatdown. But right off the bat, we're going to have an initial stun engage here on a Stingus. Is the concussive blows? No. Oh, it does land. They do get the poke off. That's going to be sending Stingus back to base. And finally, I will ease it down and let our main man introduce himself.
Hello, I'm your color caster for the evening Beatdown Boulevards. Apparently Zephyr doesn't want to say my name anymore, which is
I
hurts
said my
feelings a little
main
bit.
man. I love you. Let me love you.
I just wanted to hear you say it, but here we go. We got quite the matchup ahead of us here, Zephyr, and everyone else watching on Twitch. Vlad Banners only versus Lotus. A lot of us said Vlad Banners only were going to win, but here's the caveat. Lotus,
gosh.
we talked about it.
Yeah.
Good at team fighting. Very good. In fact, the matches they lost is only due to one botched team fight at the very end of the game. Of course, we know how late game can go. It does end up being a little bit of a coin flip. So we can see that Lotus this time around have gotten the beefiest front to back you could ever imagine here. So this Caitlyn, Alistair, and JVL on this Orianna, they're going to be sitting pretty. They're going to be babysat like you couldn't believe. Sat on like an egg by a precious mother hen. That is the rest of the team, and that's the goal here. Keep that back line alive into that late game. Vlad Banners only, similar situation, but they've leaned a bit more towards that damage, but it's going to be tough as the game gets later, as the front line of Lotus gets beefier. It's going to be harder to get through them. I'm expecting perhaps a Black Cleaver to come through for Jimmy.
Ooh.
Should we get that far in the game.
You see the bot lane here. Lotus, they've already gotten their level 2 advantage, playing off it, pushing the pressure down here, trying to find some sort of advantage trade onto the Jhin and Rakan. And I have to say, especially in this lane as a whole, you have a lot of power presence on the Jhin and Rakan. Both of these guys are going to just run your lane if you're not careful, especially as you get towards that 5 and 6 phase. Alistair and Dunsey doing a great job taking advantage as much time as they have on the board here, getting control out there, getting that CS lead already in their favor, and getting that Caitlyn on the way towards her mid to late game power haven, where she is just undefeatable.
That's right. Interesting thing too is that both of these teams do spike at around 2 to 3 items, so we do expect to see a lot of mutual team fighting and potentially just handshake farming until that moment, except for Sting.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. That's not quite the handshake I was looking for. If your handshake ends with a closed fist connecting to the jaw, then maybe, yeah, that's a handshake. But this handshake's going to end up with Malphite looking potentially for the back, but I don't think he's going to have time to find it with that wave crashing in. And Jimmy from Vlad coming in here, the knockup from Stingus. He's going to be under turret. Crooked Circuit goes down, but Stingus staying a little too long. It's the 1-for-1 trade there, but you do have the kill landing over on Jimmy.
Yeah, so it's honestly, if you're Crooked Serpent, you love to see it. You do get that 1-for-1 trade in the end here, and it's going to be pretty easy to TP to lane. On the other hand, Stingus gets to walk it out, so that's actually going to be pretty big. That TP will be available for potentially that first dragon fight that may be coming up soon. Other than that, though, gold, of course, is dead even here. I'm really curious to see whether or not Katsuki passes his way topside, because Stingus still doesn't have that flash for just a little bit longer, as they blew it during the early skirmishes. I'm wondering if they're going to punish that rather, or if they're just going to stick to the bottom side, try to assist their mid and bot lane, keep that priority so they can try and secure the first dragon.
I'm alive. I come from the grave. It's a Halloween day. Either way, I'm back. The Wi-Fi just crashed on me, and I know it's a little bit sad, but I'm always here. I promise. I'm listening from the grave. Either way, Jimmy with a lot of priority, already making his way back toward the top side here. Stingus is looking a bit low, but Crooked Serpent's going to be the one to find the end here, trying to get out of this one, but he's going to be poked down. Jimmy securing another kill onto his belt. And before I hit that Wi-Fi crash, I wanted to discuss how Jimmy had already set up so much presence into the river of this top side that Katsuki didn't even have a chance to come for a gank there. The vision was set up, the Scuddler was down, all these things just dissuade Volley from stepping up, especially since most of his power is on that mid to bot side. So free pickings for Jimmy, and then of course it played through the way you saw.
And it's really great. Jimmy taking advantage of the Malphite free 6. No unstoppable force to escape situations or turn fights around. Well, hold on a second. What's going on mid lane? JVL forced to cleanse. Yeah, it's okay. I had not looked over. I started clinching for JVL just a little bit, but he does end up living. However, as a result, we're actually going to see some warding going on in the dragon pit for Vlad Banners only. And now they actually have a lot of vision in that area. So you got to imagine Katsuki, who I think is getting pretty close to that level 6 mark as he's just been power farming, is going to want to try and make a play soon.
Yeah, that would be the idea as a jungler, but, you know, hot takes all around. Love you as a color, as always. Either way, Katsuki, of course, definitely needs to start picking up some of the pace here on the ball. He's going to be approaching that Stormbringer, which is really what I'm waiting for here, but initially it's going to be this dragon fight that will probably start to see him. He's already making the engage here onto Prophet. Going to have to back out with a lot of absurd damage, pushing him out of the river here from Prophet. I mean, only sitting on the amplifying tome in the ring there, and he's already pretty gross, and this gives priority for the dragon now on the Vlad.
Oh, this might be a kill on those as well.
Good shockwave there to dissuade the pressure. JVL doing so great on the play. He's gonna punish him. That was insane.
Unfortunately, Lotus lose the dragon, but JVL takes the moral and financial victory in 1v1ing the Zoe. Excellent shockwave. Is gonna happily back with that nice chunk of chains, get themselves a tier, an extra amp from, and walk their way back. Look, man, it's 7 minutes in the game. That's great, but gold is still pretty even here.
I don't care.
Vlad banners, I care. That's what
beat down. That was the sickest play ever. It may be your time to talk, but the just. You don't see the Orianna go swish dodge, ninja feet there, bing bam bop. Prophet doesn't get nothing, and then he's punished out. I'm sorry, I'm losing it.
Oh, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
You can talk, I guess.
Oh, thank you. First dragon over to Vlad Banner's only Prophet. Oh, hold on. Speaking of, Stingus looks like he wants to fight Croc Serp, and he has to call the Forge God.
I didn't expect him to go through with that, but that clap comes through afterwards. Jimmy and Prophet are there to collapse on this, and of course, Unstoppable Force is going to be utilized, and he's going to go for the immediate back too, so just baiting out that ultimate, I guess.
Well, I mean, it does end up working out pretty well now. They have pretty good control over the top side river as well. They might actually be able to grab the Herald, but it's looking like Jimmy wants to back up. No, he's going to help his mid laner. Can he? I'm gonna guess Zephyr is disconnected, and I can also guess.
All the time.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just a little bit sad. We did see the kill there slide over the way. My apologies. Slide over the way of JBL there, getting another kill onto Prophet here. Prophet not having a great day on the Zoe, and finally, we actually saw that rotation start up from Katsuki, so very nice to see the Volibear start making some of the impact that we need to see.
That's right, being so powerful in the early game, I do want to see more of Katsuki's activity, and especially denying the marks from Jimmy. I believe he's been able to grab 2 so far. I can just hover. No, he actually only has grabbed 1 because he still marked the Volibear, who he hasn't able to get the takedown on so far. So this Kindred is on pace so far. As he's going to be able to pick. Yeah. As he's going to be able to pick off. Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
He's going to pick up the Herald.
Grand entrance dodge. The stun coming through. Oh, the current call is going to be end, but the flash is going to save it. Fantastic play there.
Yeah, that one was really close. However, he's going to be forced out of lane and could potentially... Nope. He's actually going to... So it's like Gates and Walnut aren't going to actually shove the wave out, so they will be able to come back for some minions. I don't know why Prophet's getting so aggro.
I mean, he's getting aggro because he thought he had the Drowsy, but that cleanse came through and shut it completely down now. JBL couldn't punish it as much as he would have liked to, but just the fact that he's able to take these 1v1 trades in such a daunting fashion again and again and again is definitely boding well here for the side of Lotus.
And Vlad Banner's only being this hyper-aggressive team that we talked about, who can definitely overextend themselves from time to time.
Ooh, Jimmy here, Stingus with the knock-up, collapsing onto JVL, instant destruction. That shutdown's going to end up onto Jimmy there, continually funneling most of this gold onto him.
Yeah, so it seems like this Kindred is going to be the win condition here for Vlad Banners. Already 3-0 right now, has quite the gold lead in comparison to Katsuki. And that's someone they're going to want to be playing through so far. And honestly, I'm surprised Jimmy hasn't made a play bot lane just yet, but he wants to drop the Herald mid, get some plates into his and Prophet's pocket, and get that mid tower lower and lower.
Yeah, not quite going to be able to secure much more after that. I don't know if Prophet's going to be able to push that wave much further, but no, okay, JVL is going to make the rotation there. I don't think he's going to be able to catch. No, he'll find most of that wave. Either way, still a sturdy amount of gold in the pocket there, even though he is sitting on the 0-2 in the mid lane, which is nice to see. Vlad, even if you're kind of losing your lane, they still come back around and they try to secure you and get you back in on it. And as a result, the gold lead is nigh equivalent here.
And that it is. So far, it looks like Lotus rather, have every lane pushing in as well. And with this dragon coming up really soon, it is going to be quite big for them. They're going to want to be able to pick that up, find out which soul it's going to be. But instead, they want to make a play bottom. Katsuki's clearing the ward. He's actually going to walk away. He's not trying to fight.
Good decree there. You get away. You decide, you know what? Maybe the ward's not on the plate for today. Go somewhere else.
Exactly. But now he might want to play mid. Oh, wait. The bubble comes through.
But that's
No
the win
cleanse.
now. That's it. I mean, Katsuki, I don't think he had the option to really get deep on that engage there, so I'm not surprised he didn't come through. But neither did Jimmy, and I'm confused on the rotation. But now Stingus here going to be making the call. The Forge God knock-up clap play as Jimmy's going to make his way towards the top side here. Crooked Circuit knows this is what's going down. He's going to be walking back, but it's too late. Jimmy's
Oh my
arrived. He's
God.
just going to auto-attack this man out, and he continues to funnel those kills onto the Lamb. I feel bad for this rock in a hard place.
Yeah, one thing I don't understand is why doesn't Jimmy mark Crooked Serpent? That's the 4th time he's gotten a kill on him, but right now he currently has the Orianna mark.
Stormbreaker engage. Katsuki
Oh.
coming through. Knock up there onto Vivo. I mean, Walnut, my apologies, able to dash out, and that's Rakan for you. A bit too slippery, and that's a lot of major plays on those ultimates taken out there. But they did secure the dragon, so I think it's fine. It's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. You didn't have to really commit any summoner spells as well. You get Zoe to actually commit her real flash, not one she stole with Spell Thief. That alone is something to be celebrated. As now Prophet, who hasn't been having the most enjoyable of games, is someone they can keep pressing on, keep getting this Orianna strong, because she is going to be one of these late game damage win conditions Lotus
wow.
are playing for.
She already is sitting on the completed Merc Treads into the Archangels, which is almost 300 stacks away from the completed into the Seraph race. Meanwhile, top lane, Deja Vu is all I can be said here, and immediately
Oh
we're
my
going to see that
God.
unstoppable force. I mean, there's nothing else you can do. And it feels bad because most of these team fights, especially around Dragon Pit, which have not come to full fruition here for the side of Lotus, it's so boring because he just doesn't have the unstoppable to work with every single time.
And that's actually been really good.
Drowsy
really
Bubble,
good
Walnut Cleanse there, quickness doesn't
Wow.
hit! Does not hit through! JVL with the fancy feet once again! This Orianna is just... Oh, it's beautiful beatdown.
Yeah, I gotta be real. I gotta be a little more excited about that one because JVL actually just can't get hit by anything. So sometimes he gets hit by a Sleepy Trouble Bubble, but he ends up immediately cleansing it. And when it really counts, he
Dunsey.
dodges out.
Dunsey,
It's okay, he has a
that's it.
dash.
He got the dash, but he's also half health there. It's
Yeah,
okay.
Did he die?
No, he did not die, beatdown. Thank you for your critical analysis. My eyes
Hey, that
are
was
blind.
a question. That was a question. Come on, you never watched The Hangover? Oh, actually, you might be too young for that.
Whoa! I no longer want to cast with him. Jake, I know you're listening somewhere. Get me Paul next week. Either way, Jimmy here footing so aggressively around the top side, just waiting to funnel his pockets with a bit more rocks on his end. And sadly, Crooked Serpent has learned his lesson. He says, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me 4 times. Okay, I get it. All right, leave me alone.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate when the enemy jungler has to decides to pitch a 10 in your lane. But speaking of all that extra gold Jimmy's gotten himself, has afforded him that Black Cleaver. Really good itemization because a lot of people are going to start building armor on the side of Lotus. So that's something you're going to want to be able to get through at any given point, especially with Crooked Serpent. He's finished the Sunfire Cape,
Yeah.
and now both sides
he big boy.
are just... Oh, he's big. And he's only getting bigger, Zephyr. That's the thing.
I love me my fantasy. Big tank.
Wait. Okay. Never mind. Carry on. Oh, was that your fantasy? Just a big tank? Oh, nope. You know what it is? Zephyr's internet's going down. That's okay because...
Why
Lotus
is it
upgraded the internet. Oh, okay. You're back.
That cut out at the absolute. I left you with just big boy fantasy, and that's all you had to go off of.
Yeah, I really thought for a
That
second
sounds
that you just left me with that. I was like, wow, okay. But then
I was
I
gonna
remembered
say,
you have Comcast.
yes, big boy fantasy with the heavy carry backline, giving us that front to back
There we
great
go.
team comp presence. That's
Beautiful.
the fantasy I was looking for, not the big boys. Meanwhile, we've got Patasso. Oh wow, Walnut with the immediate grand entrance there. There's the Call of Forge God going to come deep in the backline. Dunsey looking very low, going to be forced to flash out as Crooked Serpent comes through there with Delbert, gets the Q off. Lambs or Spike going to be thrown down from Jimmy as he's a bit too far forward. The healing's not going to be enough though, as we see the unstoppable force secured from Malphite as they pick up 2 additional kills. Stingus and Gates the only ones left alive, and Gang is coming through just way too late to this team fight. Lotus out of nowhere finally gracing me with the team fight comp that they have brought to us here with the 3 kills on the board.
And this is why we said Lotus was good with team fighting. They played around their front line perfectly, even with Crooked Serpent greeting just a little bit for that kill onto the Rakan, but overall they get all the kills. They're gonna pick up their second dragon, get a little bit of resistances, and now all of a sudden they've given themselves a 3,000 gold lead. JVL's completed the Seraph's Embrace. They are all of a sudden looking very good. Vlad Banner's only putting a little too much trust in Jimmy's damage there, and the worst part about it, Gates wasn't anywhere near that fight, Zephyr. He couldn't actually do anything.
No, he wasn't. And not even that. I feel like that's the biggest point here. They did not have Gates into the fight as a whole. That's a huge chunk of damage that's taken out of that one. But at the same time, there was such a great split into this fight by having Stingus and Crooked Serpent. Having Crooked Serpent and Katsuki push that backline to the limit, separating the fight, and then leaving Jimmy out to dry completely. No one could come to his aid off of that Lamb's Respite, and it was like fish in a barrel, as my friend Rebel Fox likes to say. And they just went down, down, down. 1, 2, 3 kills all picked up in a row there.
Yeah, that's right, and you can see as a result, especially with that extra kill on Alistair as the Caitlyn, he's actually quite a decent bit ahead of VBO right now, about half an item. Actually, now that I look at it, Gates, who I meant to refer to, of course, he's sitting on a lot of gold right now. I think with this, I suppose it's because he's just not backing right now, just being a goblin, sitting on all that gold, farming the bottom wave as well, should be able to complete the Infinity Edge right away. And now, I think you just want to farm if you're Vlad Banners only. There's nothing to fight for at the moment except maybe the second Herald coming up. Or, sorry, that's the Baron, actually. So you don't want to fight for that yet. So Vlad Banners only, they just need to hang back. Okay. Hey, see, Stormrazor Zeal. That's much better.
That's going to put some impact in this, but to go back on that team fight, even if it Gates arrived, I don't think a Stormrazor, or not having that on his belt, I believe it was just the BF, that's not going to do much in a team fight there. So we possibly would have even seen Lotus come out on top as well there. Alistar looking a bit pushed back here, going to be using the 50 caliber net and the flash to get out of this one. The Sleepy Bubble Trouble not hitting anybody there, but that is a huge chunk taken out here as they're all forced to back off that aggressively. But they don't care. They're just going to keep pushing this back in, and they have all their ultimates available here. Really good bite there onto Jimmy. He's going to throw out the Lamb's Respite immediately, very early in my opinion. Ace of the Hole going to come through there, and it actually finds its way onto Jimmy. Straight through everybody, securing that kill there. And now with the turret down here, an unstoppable force comes through with the Stormbringer for an instant double. Lotus with a phenomenal play. I feel like their CC is always timed so efficiently. 1, 2, 3, 4, never at the same time. Always pushing these guys further and further, and now that's the Baron.
And this is the second time that Jimmy is caught out all alone, left to the mercy of more or less Lotus's entire team, forced to use the Lamb's Respite onto himself, and ends up getting torn apart for it. They get 2 kills, but Lotus have also picked themselves a very early Baron as a result as well. This gold lead is ballooned up to 5,000, and look at all this gold that has gotten onto the Caitlyn as well, because now IE has already been purchased. BF Sword, there's a lot of damage here. And you know what? Let me just go ahead and check her gold value. She's sitting already on 2,000 gold as well. So that's going to be a second item ready to go. This Caitlyn is exactly where you want her to be. Yes, very likely the Storm Razor. And this is it. Like, the early team fights were all Vlad banners had going for them. Like we talked about, Lotus's team fight's going to only get beefier from this moment forward, and their window to win this game is closing.
JBL in a great position here onto Lotus. He's got Dunsey over the wall, but the Shockwave's gonna do enough. And Dunsey with a bite, finding that Q, and now he looks to further aggress, but he's gonna be slowed out. But Jimmy, too much. No need to go that deep. Your team does not have the presence on the map at this point, man.
And that's exactly right, Zephyr. Vlad banners only are never where they need to be as a whole to help Jimmy. Jimmy is always getting caught out by himself. We talked about Lamb's Respite being a good ultimate for team fights. Well, if Jimmy
Wait a second, speaking about caught out alone, unstoppable force. Crooked Serpent just easily just creme de la creme picks that man up in a second flat, and without gates on the board here, they can just push out all these turrets.
This is going to be a phenomenal power play here for Team Lotus. You can't walk into your side of the jungle with this many turrets down gates, and his team is going to pay for it. Vlad banners only could very easily threaten an inhibitor, maybe even 2, with the waves coming in the mid lane and a wave coming shortly soon in the bottom.
Yeah, that wave's going to be pressured back there, and Prophet's doing a great job pushing out the damage to keep them further and further off here, but this gold lead continues to stack against them, and now with Mountain Drake on the board here, that's going to continue to funnel additional tank stats here onto what is an insane front line that Lotus has drafted for themselves, making it harder and harder for them to find an appropriate team fight. And at this point, Beatdown, it just looks worse and worse, and I'm going to be honest, man, a lot of us, not me, because I'm smart and big brain, but a lot of us here thought Vlad banners only had somewhat of an advantage over Lotus going into the series as a whole. And I kind of want to get your gauge on what went wrong here.
At the end of the day, it's just a matter of execution. You and I both talked about it during and even before the show, how both of these drafts had a good chance of winning out on the day here. But it was about playing to the win conditions. Vlad banners only didn't play to theirs. They got their Kindred so very ahead, so very strong. But now Jimmy's always by himself trying to 1v9. I'm sorry, Jimmy. Kindred doesn't do that. Now he's finally with his team. Maybe Vlad banners only get the fight they want. Or they just walk away.
No, they disappear, because at this point, they've got to control the waves that are pushing in here. And meanwhile, they're just going to lose a turret off this. I guess they're just rolling over.
I mean, at this point, I guess they have to. They're going to be content with just AFK farming for a little bit, trying to reach some item breakpoints. Right now, they do have that level 14 on the Ornn. He's going to get the Obsidian Cleaver. But we're going to need a little bit more, maybe a Luden's Pulse as well, and a second item on Prophet, because we're 24 minutes, and he's still on about 1.5 items. Think about that.
Wow. Just to point out on Prophet, your point there, Hid Serpent does absolutely nothing, and Prophet gets blown up with the Shockwave. I mean, Caster Curse is a thing there, but maybe I should just shut up. That is insane. I mean, one Shockwave into the Q combo, JBL just instantly bops this guy. And I thought Zoe's supposed to be bursty.
She definitely needs to be even in items for that to really happen. But again, it's hard. You see those paddle stars come through on that front line, and it just looks like it tickles. So there's nothing for the Zoe to do unless Prophet gets a good angle with these paddle stars, which is going to be next to impossible at this point. You can't even approach this front line unless you want to get hit by a Stormbringer, Glacial Fissure, Unstoppable Force. There's just too many tools on Lotus's side to punish anybody who actually tries to get on that backline.
See, my initial thought going into this was the fact that while the side of Lotus has some really heavy engage tools that are instantaneous, the fact of the matter was I didn't think their damage was going to be at the level where off of these heavy CC engage tools, they were going to be able to capitalize and find an initial kill to win a team fight. But at this point in the game, when they're 8 kills up, almost 11,000 gold lead, it doesn't matter. And now, Unstoppable Force, Jimmy's half health there. He's going to be forced to use the Lamb's Respite if he wants to live. But Ace, no, he doesn't even get a chance. He decides, I got to save it for the team fight. I got to save it for the team fight. Ooh, Alistar, but he's in a bad spot now. Call of the Forge Guard does find the knock up there. Alistar flashes back, but the flash forward to get the charm off. Sadly, the heal doesn't come through, and the shutdown works its way over this thing. It's going to be that 1-for-1, but Alistar, I feel like, is a bigger hit to take here for someone to be down.
That's right, no Baron up for Vlad Banners to pressure, but that is a good shutdown to pick up. I only wish it would have gone onto someone like Gates, Prophet, maybe Jimmy. Thorn could use it to get even beefier here, and unfortunately, Vlad Banners are just going to threaten another inhibitor. It just feels like Lotus, they're going to threaten another inhibitor. Vlad Banners can't do anything. They are just here trying to take it. Jimmy is trying to build up whatever marks he can. I talked about him being on pace earlier. He is at the 5 marks now, which means the last time he died at the Krug camp, maybe 4 or 5 minutes ago, he reached the 4-mark point. But Jimmy, he can't do anything. He's trying to build that Blade of the Rune King, which is a really smart item to build to get through these tanks. But until that's built, I don't see Vlad Banners actually getting a window into any of these team fights. They might have to give this next Baron as well, or go for a steal.
Give is not an option here in Beatdown. If you give this Baron over, you're essentially accepting defeat or basing off of one huge crucial team fight, which is something you never want to do. At this point, though, I don't think they even have a chance. They're going to be backing off this because in terms of pressure, lane control, just getting into the river as a whole, they have nothing. They have nothing, and that's just free Baron off of that. My gosh.
Yeah, and I like that Lotus are moving down to get mid-prio. They're going to push down into the bottom side river as well, set up vision for the play. They think they can catch people off reset. What they may not know is Crooked Serpent's TP'd in.
He's TP'd in deep into the back line here. Great route there on to XLNC. Serpent's looking for some form of engager, but Prophet's got a huge Palace Guard deep in the backline, finally finding the damage he needs. Curtain Call's going to come out here, start launching forward. Prophet going to be absolutely just shredded through as he stepped too far forward with the portal jump. Now Call of the Forge Guard coming through, but it's going to be hit by the Unbreakable. Deep in the backline, that's going to be the Unstoppable Force. We do have the Lamb's Spike coming down immediately there. Crooked Serpent taking low, but Fierce is going to be looking way worse. Gates flashes after the shutdown comes through. Palace Guard launching back, and the root going to take out Stingus as he burns through. Dunzy picking up that one. Now JVL stepping up, Prophet using the portal jump over and over. Walnut getting the great entrance with the knockup, trying to escape now. He's going to be hit by the bite, but the vision's enough to find Gates as Dunzy looks low, and JVL is going to be the one to pick it up, even though the X-Null doesn't hit it. It's the 2-for-1 and the soul now for Lotus.
And you can see Jimmy, he's going to try and play for the steal. He knows he can't let this dragon go, or that will spell the end for Vlad Banners only. They're trying to push them off of the Baron by some time, but it's going to be so difficult. It's looking like he's just going to get it easily. Oh my god, they lost the Nexus turret in the process. Zephyr, I think the game's over, man.
The game's not... Well, okay, the game's over when the Nexus falls, okay? But the game is very steep in favor of Lotus. You are correct. I will say the Soul at this point has really stacked up, especially going against something like the Zoe and Jhin, 2 champions that excel off of high sustained poke. Mountain Soul is your worst nightmare. Maybe Ocean's a little worse, but Mountain Soul is pretty bad too. At this point, you're not able to rip through that backline the way you intended. And we saw Prophet come through. He almost did it that last fight. He found a very good burst and shot down both JVL and Alistar to half health. But after that, the fight decided, oh wait, we're frontline, let's shift it back, and then suddenly it just all collapsed once again.
Yeah, now Vlad Banners only are going to have to prepare the defense of their lives. As you can see, Lotus are trying to make their way in the base. They still have the Baron buff for just a little bit longer as well. But here it is. They take mid inhib. They're probably going to go take bottom inhib. And if they catch somebody just a centimeter out of line, you got to imagine that's Unstoppable Force into basically the end of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to call it, but I will say that
I
wave
said
not
if that time.
Thank you. I appreciate you adding
You're
in those
welcome.
conditionals. You're like
Of
Ray
course.
Romano. Maybe he exists, maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
True.
Either way, that wave is eventually going to push in here into Vlad Banners only, and that's going to be what is the final or second in him. Now the first one finally actually made its way back up. But Katsuki's Crooked Circuit and Dunzi, what do you do? What do you do at this point? Great, you got a drowsy bubble. That was a lot of damage, man. It was not.
Yeah, look at him. That actually getting healed up by that.
Oh, Mountain
Souls.
Soul's
Look
back.
at the
Yeah.
Mountain Soul shield. That's just
Sting is though.
disgusting.
Good knock of engage. Wanda gonna come through with the charm off the quickness call. The Forge God coming in the back line. Wanda's looking low, but a great Embrace will stop that Glacial Fissure coming through to knock up Stingus as he gets rooted out. The damage is absurd with the shockwave on a Jimmy. Gonna be forced to use the Lamb's Respite, trying to walk this one out as the Stormbreaker is gonna come through, getting a great knock up as well off of the Unstoppable Force there. Prophet looking pretty low. Alistar just uses the 50 caliber net to finish that one. And with the inhib down and Stingus and Walnut being the only two left alive, the Nexus is just tick, tick, ticking. And against all odds beatdown, against all of y'all's predictions, Lotus take a fantastic game one.
And that was an incredible game for Lotus. They drafted the team composition that we always wanted them to draft. And look at that. They ride it beautifully early, mid to late game into a very convincing victory. We ended off with an 11,000 goal difference between them and Vlad Banners only, and it feels like for the majority of that game, Lotus were in control here, punishing Jimmy, who got such a great early lead on this Kindred, but unfortunately, when it came to team fights, like we all said, Lotus still stand supreme.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, I think it's absurd that
Oh, and we lost him again. I think it's probably a good time then, since we lost Zephyr. We're just going to throw it to the analyst desk while we set up for game 2. Analysts, please talk.
Thank you so much, Beatdown, and may Zephyr rest in peace, at least until the next game. He's gonna need the rest if that game was any indication, because it was a roller coaster.
Yeah, that was really not quite what we expected. Although most of us, I believe, had VBO picked. I mean, we knew Lotus was a good team coming in. I think I said, I'll make it 2-1, but not necessarily that. And we had some pretty strong thoughts here, Dia, on some itemization things and some execution things. But ultimately, when you're at the 20-minute mark and all of your kills are only on a Kindred that's dying 4 times in a row, you're probably not going to eke it out.
Yeah, and there were a lot of problems there. I think that, like I told you before we got into your hot take, is that they lost to Shopkeep, and I don't even think that it's that hot if you look at what it was that Kindred and Jin were building. But I also want to sort of sing the good news story here as well. What's the word that I want to use? A little bit anxious when Kindred started getting kill after kill after kill, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that was off the back of a very, very nice draft move from Vlad Banners only to try and get kills on Jimmy. Because by picking the Orin, they disincentivized having any sort of brawler top, because Orin will be able to neutralize the matchup. They pick a neutralizing matchup into it, and now, even though they have Kate Braum bot lane, which is a farm it out bot lane, Lotus are not wanting to play for top either. They're wanting to just scale into something with a nice Malphite Orianna for the mid game. And Jimmy saw that, picked the Kindred, and just camped top lane anyway, and got himself incredibly ahead. And it's what he did with that really ended up being the downfall, but the idea was there. Nice.
Right, and just there were so many things like Vision, and Zephyr had a great call, and they were able to finish off a kill because of Vision. But you saw Jimmy kind of step up in these situations.